Hey there, welcome back to the Producer Joe Show. It's been a minute. As you know, we bought a deli and it has completely consumed our time. But you know what? 2026 is here, and it is my mission to get back on these podcasts and bring the great people that I meet in my life to you, people that have a story to tell, because that is the tagline for my show. Everyone has a story to tell, it could be anyone. Today we have Ted Leitner on, longtime broadcaster for San Diego, and I'm going to get right to it because last time we tried this, we had some technical difficulties. So we're just going to try to bang this out, as they say. Ted Leitner.
Joe,
There we are.
good to
All
see you,
right.
man. Good to talk to you. It's been a
Good to
while. I've been looking forward to it, and I got to get to the deli and eat well. One of my favorite lines of all time, having when the Padres would play in New York, we'd all go to the Carnegie Deli, which I thought was the greatest of all time, which is now closed, and I've been wearing a black armband in mourning ever since. And they asked the comedian Jackie Leonard, years ago, if you had your life to live over again, he said, "Hey, if I had my life to live over, I'd live it over the Carnegie Deli,"
Oh, great. Well, now
which
we're
was
going to change
which
that to the Hilltop Deli.
exactly because it was in an apartment house on Seventh Avenue in New York City, and then down below was the Carnegie. And that's been tough for those people, I'll tell you, because that died, and before that, well, it died because the woman got it in a divorce settlement. Then she didn't want to work like you and your wife do and actually work at it. So she said, "I'm
Right.
going to do this. I'll just close it and I'll keep the name Carnegie and make money from the license." And then a block away, the Stage Delicatessen, where all the stars used to go after shows and so forth, they died. So I'm glad you're doing it, and I wish you the best of luck.
Well, I do have one of our employees, Amy Brown. She's a big fan of radio and sports here. She asks, "What is your favorite sandwich?"
Woo. I always love, and when I go to those delicatessens, even in whether it's San Diego through the years, or more so down in Miami when the Padres would play down there against the Marlins, or the Charger games when they played the Dolphins, they had great delicatessens down there, as we call them in the East. Nobody ever said deli in the East, where I grew up in New York. It was always delicatessen, the full word. And Essen, I think Essen in German or in Yiddish means eat. That's where the delicatessen comes from. And my sandwich, to answer your question, was a corned beef with pastrami with cheese on it and with pickles. And I was in heaven. I was in food heaven, and that has continued to this very day. Not the most healthy food for you. That's for sure. That's for sure. But I loved it. I loved it.
Now, I can't think of the top of my head here, but DZ Akins, you have a sandwich named after you. Which one is that? Is that the same
That's
type of
exactly
sandwich?
what it is. Exactly what it is. And Debbie Akins, who still owns it, and said, you had corned beef and pastrami. We made that the Ted Leitner special, but you put American cheese on there. Normally with corned beef and pastrami, you use Swiss cheese. And I said, yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't have get a lot of taste from Swiss cheese. I like the taste of sharp American cheese, and so that's why
Right.
it's kind of a misnomer sandwich, but it's still on there, and I'm quite proud of that. I'm quite proud
And
of that.
since when have you ever gone with the crowd? You've always gone against the grain, and I like that.
I know. It's just like a salmon swimming upstream. It's difficult. It tires you out, but it makes you feel good. It makes you feel good.
Well, Ted, everybody knows your accolades. You know, you've been a broadcaster for decades in this town. You were even a broadcaster, am I not mistaken, for the Philadelphia Eagles and the Clippers, as well as the Chargers. Is that correct?
It is correct. Did the Chargers in the mid '80s and then again in the late '90s, and did the Clippers when they first moved here from Buffalo, the Buffalo Braves. Remember, moved
Yeah.
here, became the San Diego Clippers. I did their television play-by-play for a couple of years before Donnie Sterling took them to. We're having a lot of problem with Donnies in my generation, and so I took them to Los Angeles. So I did that. I loved it and had a great time doing that. And of course, the Padres for 41 years as a
Wow.
broadcaster, 5 years as an ambassador, and then with Aztec football and basketball, 30 years with that. So, I mean, nobody owes me a dime. I've had a wonderful run, a great career beyond my wildest imaginations and dreams. And I'm so thankful.
Well, I love you, and I know that that's not the popular consensus. I think that you've heard the term a lot. It's a love hate relationship. And I believe you told me something once that Rusty Nails told you.
Yeah, and Rusty is gone now. So sad, a wonderful guy and a great comedian. And I went to the Improv. Remember when the Improv opened in Pacific Beach, way back in the '80s? And the line was, I checked the marketing research. This guy Ted Leitner on Channel 8, who gives his opinion and then so forth and so on. And the marketing research shows there's only two different kinds of people in San Diego. You either hate Ted Leitner or you are Ted Leitner. And I thought that was the greatest line of all time.
It's a brilliant line. Boy, he was
I
good.
know.
He
He
was
really
good.
was good. And but you hear stuff like that, or you're listening on the radio and they're talking about you on a talk show, or you're reading something in a newspaper. And my commentary used to be called Lightner Strikes with a lightning bolt. And I read one time a column that was headlined Lightner striking out. And I thought, ouch,
Ah,
ouch.
ho,
So
ho, ho,
everybody wants
ho.
to be loved by everybody. But my theory is, unless you're Vince Scully, you know what I mean? Or Jack Buck in St. Louis. Nobody loves everybody. Somebody's always going to have something they want to criticize you for, and that's fine. They have that right to do that. And I was certainly not for everybody. Larry Lucchino used to say when he was the CEO and came in and saw me for the first time, and we got to know each other, and he watched me and listened to me, and he said, "Ted, you're like anchovies. You're an acquired taste."
Man, you get the best lines, don't you? Oh,
Shoot. And I do understand that. And when you're sitting there, especially because no one had done commentary, opinion stuff in television on local news for the most part, almost anywhere in the country, certainly not in San Diego. So to sit there and talk and look at them and tell them, hey, this is the way it is. And this, I don't care what you say, this is what I believe. And people's natural tendencies will be, hey, who the hell is this guy to tell us how he feels? I don't care. Just give the scores. Just I don't care. And I just didn't do that and didn't want to just do that. And so I'm an opinionated guy. I am to this point in my life. I always have been with sports, politically. And I did talk shows that dealt with politics, and I didn't have politics that really jibed with San Diego. I was a little to the left, and they didn't like that. But that's okay. We're Americans. We should be able to say what we want to say. And I think that's being very much threatened in our country now. And it hurts me deeply, and we need to do something about it because this is the greatest country in the history of mankind. And the idea of suppressing what somebody wants to say or prosecuting your political enemies, this must stop.
we are all Americans. We are all humans, and we all deserve respect.
That's it. That's it. That is it. Somebody needs to teach that guy in Washington about that because he does not believe that. And that's un American, and we cannot stand for it. I didn't come here to make a wave a political flag, but that's the way I believe.
That's all right, Ted. I mean, just having you on here is a huge honor. I want to know where does life find you right now? What is Ted Leitner doing these days?
You'll find me in Penasquitos, Rancho Penasquitos. And the truth of the matter is, because I've always been honest about everything, my divorces, my children, everything. That
Yeah.
when '08, I was in Fairbanks Ranch, and I'd worked a long time and made some great money, and I bought a house in Fairbanks Ranch. I thought that'd be a one for a kid who grew up in an apartment this big in New York City, and the idea of having a home, a house with a lawn, and after being in New York was so wonderful. And I thought also it'd be my greatest investment because people always made money on San Diego real estate until they didn't when the subprime scandal and all Wall Street and all their greed and suddenly the blood was running in the streets, even of Fairbanks, and I couldn't afford my house. I lost my house. In Fairbanks, I had to walk on it when the Wells Fargo would not modify my mortgage and let me keep going, having never missed a payment. I said, "Hey, modify the mortgage. I'll keep on paying the rest of my life." They said no, so I had to leave and leave a lot of money in that house, and it crippled me financially. So I don't live in those areas anymore, but that's okay. I did. I was fortunate. I was lucky. But you'll find me in Rancho Penasquitos renting because I'm an empty nester. My kids are all gone. No wives, no girlfriends anymore. It's just me, and that's okay. That's okay because you know what, Joe? At 78, with a career spanning 60 years, I've been the luckiest guy I know with
Yeah,
relatively good health all through that time. So I missed the work so much because I
I'm sure.
loved the work so much, so much. TV sports and talk shows, sports and non-sports, play-by-play, football, basketball, baseball. I had everything I ever wanted. And if you can say that, the old Asian proverb, you find something you love and you'll never have to work a day in your life, that was me.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, you're a living testament of that. You
Oh,
did leave
man.
one. You did leave one sport out right there, and I want to know why hockey is your favorite sport.
Hockey has always been my favorite sport. I just had, and people always say, I understand, I used to watch you, and all you do is the fights. You never show highlights, you only show the fights. And I say, truth of the matter is, when I was working for television for Post Newsweek in Hartford, and the WHA was still around, and I thought it was a darn good brand of hockey, not quite NHL, but really good. And the Whalers, Hartford Whalers, I covered them in TV sports, and I loved it. I loved it, especially in person. It's not a great game on television. You can't see the puck well, and it's not like the NFL. It's just not a great, or basketball, a great TV sport. But I loved hockey. And then I went to Philadelphia and I covered the Flyers when I worked for CBS in Philadelphia. So I loved hockey, but I was just having a fun. I was just having fun with it, and that was that was the deal. And you know what? Part of it was like Howard Stern now and Howard Cosell back in my day. You wanted people to watch you. And there's a lot of competition for that on television and radio. So if you stand out and do something different, and I did try to be different. A lot of the opinion thing was just the way I am and was, but the idea of having fun and saying, here are the highlights, and then show just the fight and come out. And I still hear from people on the street, "Oh, Ted, I loved your hockey highlights," but it wasn't because I dislike hockey. And I remember coming out and saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't identify the players in that fight. Moron number one was on the left, and moron number two was on the right." just and I just had so much fun, and that's what I wanted to do. Sports is fun. It's the fun and games department, and that's all I wanted to do. But I understood that purists thought, hey, screw this guy. I like to punch him right in the face. Unfortunately, that never happened.
Did you coin the term about the boxing match and the hockey game breaking out?
That was Rodney Dangerfield. That was
Rodney
Rodney Dangerfield's
Dangerfield.
line.
Wow.
Yeah, they all that Friday. I went to a boxing match one day, and a hockey game broke out. And he was so terrific. He was. I
That's
loved it. I love the one on Johnny Carson where he said, "Yeah, Johnny, my daughter. I call her. She's dating now, so I call her Federal Express because when she goes to a guy's house, she absolutely positively has to be there overnight." Remember that was the advertising slogan for FedEx when they started. I thought, what a great line! And I'll tell
Rodney
you
is the
what,
best.
Joe from abroad, and you say he's the best. I don't know, never met him, but I went to see him at the Civic Center, the Civic Theater, for an hour and 10. Boom, 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 one line after the other, and never kicked a word, as we call it. Never stumbled, never missed a beat, never missed a word. And I thought, what a pro. What an absolute pro. And I went to see George Carlin at Humphreys, and a beautiful outdoor setting that I love so much, that we all do, and the concerts in the summer. And Carlin, and just pacing the stage. And I thought, this is not just a comedian, it's like a professor, it's a lecture. And he never stumbles one time, just going with that stuff that he always writes as himself, then memorizes it and does it. And I thought, these are brilliant, brilliant performers. And you mentioned Dangerfield, and he was right up there.
I will put three in that category:
Yep,
Carlin, Dangerfield, and I have to put right up there um, Don Rickles. To
no
me,
question.
those are the top three to me. But
And
anyways,
Rickles,
that's me.
and Rickles, you have to give an extra part two because unlike those guys, I mean, they weren't using a script, but they wrote that stuff, they memorized that stuff, and they had no teleprompter out there, and they were just winging it in terms of
Yeah.
making sure they knew it. Rickles never prepared. I got to be, and part of my many, many blessings by being in the business, I got to be close friends with Jerry Lewis because Jerry would leave Las Vegas in the heat of the summer and he would live on his boat parked at the Marriott Marina downtown. And so he called the Padres one time and he said, I watched Ted Leitner on the news at Channel 8 at night. And I used to watch Jerry Coleman play for the Yankees when I lived in New Jersey. Can I come to the Padre games? And so I walk in one day and there's Jerry Lewis. And I thought it was just heaven because no one made me laugh more as a kid
Sure.
than Jerry Lewis, you know. And I just ah, meeting those kind of people, it's been absolutely wonderful. But and now and this is what happens now when you get to this age. Now that I'm talking about Jerry Lewis, I'm trying to remember. And Jerry told me that Rickles never prepared. He went out there and just winged it. Now you think about that. A big audience with 1,000 people at whatever, or on
Yeah.
television with millions watching, and Rickles just had it in his brain that he could go out there and ad lib some of it, use some old stuff that he already had, and to do that in front of your peers or on national television, Rickles was brilliant and funny as hell.
Yeah, he really was. All the way up to the end. I
Oh, no
mean,
question.
tremendous actor too. I mean, he was in Casino and was probably one of my favorite people in the movie Casino.
Oh,
But
he was amazing. He was just amazing. And I asked Jerry, and Jerry said, "Oh, one of the greatest guys of all time. Just a sweetheart, an absolute sweetheart." And of course, the greatest line ever by Rickles was when he had before he married his wife Barbara. He was dating a woman in Vegas when he was playing Vegas, and so Sinatra took a liking to Rickles, and so he comes up to Sinatra at the dining room and says, "Frank, I'm with this young lady here. I want to impress her. So I want her to know that I know Frank Sinatra. Can you come over and say, hey, Don, whatever? And I know, I'll be in, man. I'll be in like Flynn." Sinatra goes over while they're having dinner and comes up to the table and says, hey, Don, how you doing? And he says to Sinatra, Frank, can't you see I'm with somebody? Leave me alone. Just great. And
big time.
Sinatra laughed so hard. And that's Don Rickles, just
That's
absolutely as funny
fantastic.
as can be. And when he began playing clubs in New Jersey and so forth, and nobody believed in him except his mom, and she pushed him. And same thing, he wasn't doing the standard stuff. He started out as an actor and did some acting roles way back when, but then he started just, no, that's not me. I want to do the ad lib thing. This is what I want to do. And boy, did he do it.
Well, you did mention Jerry Coleman, and I want to segue into Jerry real quick because I
Sure.
have to tell you, as a kid growing up, listening to you and Jerry, and of course there was Dave Campbell and Bob Chandler.
Yep.
Uh, I have to tell you, in every game I ever listened to you, and Jerry was known for some of his mallet props, and no matter what, if he made a mistake, Ted, you never once showed him up on the
No,
air.
no,
You
no,
never
no.
corrected him. And to me, that you're a professional, man. And that
I
I
appreciate that. I
I
appreciate
had the
that.
opportunity to interview Jerry Coleman in his home shortly before he
Mm.
died. What an
Hmm.
absolute treasure and a gentleman,
No question, no
a
question.
hero.
And one of my proudest moments, quite frankly, that I've not spoken about almost, I don't think to anybody. Well, Larry Lucchino, when he was CEO of the Padres, called me one day, and Larry said, come on, Jerry drives me crazy sometimes. I don't know where the ball is. I don't know what's going on. And and then Larry said to me, but I can tell how much you respect him and how much you love him because you never correct him. And if you do, you come in 10 minutes later and refer to a play and then describe how the play went and without ever doing that. But that's what I believed in on the standpoint of loving him. I would ever embarrass him. But also, Jerry had taught me. I had dinner last night with some former people from Channel 8, including a weekend sports guy, who said, hey, I want to thank you for promoting me and talking about me, and you helped my career. And Jerry taught me things like that because he had been a player on those great Yankee teams. And he would teach me, hey, we're a team. We're a team. And you make the other guy look good, and that makes you in the long run look good. We all do it well as a team. We all succeed that way, and that's who taught me that. He was a mentor, my brother, my friend, everything. Jerry was, and that was part of it. You promote not just yourself, you promote the other people. Let them promote you too. But that comes from Jerry Coleman. As so many things in my life come from Jerry Coleman.
Oh, absolutely. We were blessed to have him. I mean,
No,
definitely lost him way too soon, but it was just a pleasure to have him here as long as we did.
Oh, there's no
Wow.
question. And even 89, which is a full life, was for him too soon because genetically, at that time, I came in one time and he was talking on his cell phone, and we're getting ready to do a game, and it's a pretty long conversation, and he hangs up. I said, "Who are you talking to?" He said, "My older sister." He at that time
He,
was like 85 or whatever. I said, "You have an older sister?" "Yeah, she's 93." So I'm thinking Jerry's got the great genes. And that's why people said, Ted, you said you were shocked when he died. I said, yes, give me a contract for me and you, Joe. We can go to 89 with good health like him
yeah,
and be successful and have a great family. We'll take that. We'll sign that contract. But with Jerry's longevity in his family, I thought he's gonna easily go into his 90s. So yeah, I was shocked.
yeah,
That's why recently, same thing with that. When you got the great genes, I had met, not become a friend, but I had met and become an acquaintance of Rob Reiner,
oh,
and met him 30 years ago in San Diego. And we had lunch together at a table before he was introduced as the speaker that day. And his mom lived to 94. His dad, the great Carl Reiner, lived to 98. So I even told Rob that day, man, oh man, you got the greatest genes. You're going to live to be 100, and without cancer or his son killing him, for God's sakes. Rob
yeah,
was Rob was in the prime of his life at my age, 78. And that's what it broke my heart anyway of what happened. But the idea that with his genes and his health, Rob was going to be around making more movies and making us laugh and cry for a long time.
sure.
It just broke my heart. And you know what? I tweeted this, put it on X, excuse me. In that conversation, we talked about we're both from the Bronx and we moved to Westchester County and so forth. And then we start talking about our kids. And at the time, we had toddlers. We had toddlers named Nick, both me and Rob. And in the conversation, he said to me, Ted, I love him so much. It's almost a physical pain. And I thought, Rob, that is so beautiful. And I have that same feeling when I see my little guy running and toddling around and the way he talks. And that boy that he loved so much, it was like a physical pain, is
Yeah,
alleged to have killed him. And it's something I and many people, and I didn't know him that well, I just had that one lunch with him, just can't get over. It's
yeah.
it's one of the worst things that happened in my lifetime.
Tragic and stunning.
Oh,
Absolutely.
oh boy. Oh boy. And I was lucky enough, Carl Reiner, who wrote several books, would come on my radio show, my non-sports radio show in the mornings at KFMB 1,000 years ago. And Carl would come on and promote his books. And he was just simply a wonderful guy. So it's like you meet the son, you meet the father, you know the guy he comes from. And Carl Reiner had this wonderful son named Rob Reiner. And we were lucky to have had them both.
Well, I've got three more questions here from listeners,
That's
viewers.
coincidentally, that's three more. I have three more answers.
Okay. James Hickey asks, what is your most memorable sporting event that you have called?
Wow.
Yeah.
There's been so many,
You got
but
to narrow it down to one.
so many. But if Mr. Hickey says it's got to be number one, it's got to be one, and that would be the NCAA championship game for the Aztecs and in the stadium in Houston. That entire experience, not just that game, to answer his question, but when you get a championship game, and you remember the Aztecs went 5 minutes full. Actually, it was more than that. It was 10 minutes, as I recall. Yeah, 10 minutes without scoring a field goal. Not one
Hmm.
basket in 10 minutes. And then they're still down by five with 5 minutes to go. So they have a good shooting day, above average shooting day, and they could have been national champions. And so to be there, to go through the entire experience of the Final Four for the first time and all that stuff, and the great shot by Lamont to get him into that game, that has to be my number one experience of all the sports.
Okay, I can buy that. I thought you might have gone with the Garvey home run because the Padres finally got put on the map a little bit there. Um, but I
But
guess
that
that
again,
was the easy answer.
yeah, and it was for a sporting event, but I didn't call that. I was not on the air. Jerry was on the air and called that. And don't tell me, Double D, Don Drysdale was on
Oh,
television for
post
ABC.
game.
Yep. So
postseason.
I did not do that game. I did the pregame
Ah,
show, the postgame show, and all that. But for play-by-play being there, that would have to extrapolate to Aztec basketball and Lamont Butler, and then the Final Four, and playing UConn. And again, I was the voice of the UConn Huskies back in
mhm.
Hartford in the '70s. And so, but I had no problem. I had no problem wanting the Aztecs to win. That UConn was in the past. The Aztecs were right there, and it was great. It was great.
Yeah, I should have thought about that postseason broadcasting little caveat there. That was my
Oh
bad.
yeah, oh yeah,
Uh,
huge.
Now, from Facebook, Brian Johnson asks, "How many times did you have to mute the microphone due to laughing while on the air? Because you and Jerry really had a great time
So
talking
many
about each
times.
other's walks and everything. And
So many
what'd you
times.
do today, Jerry?
So many times that well, yeah, we have the cough, what they call a cough button, and you switch it off or just push the button, and we would laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh and have just a great time. And some of the times it was when he would say something that was kind of, I don't know what the word would be, goofy, and I would tease him about that, and that was the thing. I could tease him about that. I never tease him on the air, but I would tease him off the air about, you know what you said, what, and then he'd say it, and he'd say and start to laugh, and then we get a laugh out of it. But I would never, do it publicly or never do it on the
No.
air. So he did have times like that. One of my favorites was in Cleveland. And the famous guy with the drum and the wild hair in Cleveland that goes around banging and banging the drum for the Indians,
Mhm.
and he's right below us in what they call the loge, right below the open press box, and he's banging and banging and banging. I can tell it's annoying Jerry. So Jerry says, "Well, what is that? No, who is that guy with the drum?" I said, "Jerry, don't you remember that was the guy that the Indians, because he was annoying other people, the fans, not just you, now, but they." Had a lawsuit that he couldn't bang the drum, so they went to court, and the judge ruled in splitting, the cutting the baby in half, as they say, that he could come in, but he had to buy a ticket for himself and buy a ticket for the drum. So he came back and he's still drumming and drumming and drumming. And Jerry says, "Well, gosh darn it, let him go home and bang someone else."
Oh my God. Okay, I never heard that one.
And I laughed and laughed and laughed, and I couldn't get to my cough. I couldn't get to my cough switch fast enough, and I'm laughing and laughing and laughing and laughing. Fortunately, it was that batter that makes the third out of the inning, and we go to the commercial break, and I'm laughing, and Jerry says, "What are you laughing about?" And I said, "You said you should go home and bang someone else," and Jerry says, "No, no, no. I say you should bang something else." And I say to Dave Marcus, our producer, "Dave, have him play it back. Jerry, put your headphones on. They're going to play it back at the studio." And he puts his headphones on. He hears, and let him go home and bang someone else. And he smiles, takes his headphone off, looks at me, and says, "Well, I guess I did say that." And I had 100 things like that through the course of broadcasts, and the laughter and the laughter. And I
Oh, that's
just
great.
said, "They're paying us, Chair. They're paying us, and we shouldn't be having so much fun." I think that when I go on YouTube and watch the Seinfeld bloopers, and they're laughing so hard. And Julia Louis Dreyfus has this wonderful laugh when she gets so hysterical. And she always said, we got started at 6 in the morning, and now we got to get this done. So we're still, working at 9 at night, and I'm exhausted. And when I get tired, I get goofy and I'm silly and I'm laughing at stuff. And I'm thinking, these people are getting paid so much money and having so much fun. Well, we didn't get
Yeah.
paid that much, but Jerry and I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, you sure did, and that was evident. That was definitely.
Yeah.
I've had Dave Marcus on the show before. What a fantastic guy! Love Dave Marcus.
No question, and has the greatest recall, by the way. You know
Oh
those
yeah.
sports champions and those sports quiz shows they've had through the years. If Dave goes on that, he'll beat anybody in the country. I've never seen any. In fact, you brought it up. I had lunch with Dave, among others, last night. Dinner last night with Dave and some other folks from the old Channel 8 days. Remember Rick Powers? Rick Powers, who did
Mhm.
Powers Plays, did the weekend sports on Channel 8. It was he and his wife and one of my producers, Todd Villalobos, and Dave Marcus. We had dinner last night at Pamplemousse, my favorite restaurant in San Diego, and same thing. Same thing. Dave, if I couldn't remember this guy. Dave, who was the guy who had the so and so? In a second, the recall. It could be 40 years ago, 30 years ago. Simply amazing. And Dave knows sports more than me and Jerry combined.
Yeah, he was a tremendous conversationalist. I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, yep.
Um, okay, so one final guy here has a couple questions for you. He's Don Benson. He's a longtime listener. He's a good dude. He asks, how does someone who grew up in New York find his way to Oklahoma to attend college?
The standard answer to that is on a Greyhound bus. That's how he finds
Yeah.
his way because his father has his father has some money, but he doesn't spend it. He didn't spend it on me. I still remember the number. He got all these student loans that I had to pay back when I started working, which was fine, and I still remember the number 7747. That was the check I had to write every month for like 10 years to pay off that student loan after I went to college because he was, you know what? He was not I had no relationship with him. That's why Jerry was my dad. Jerry Coleman was my dad. My dad and I were not close. He was very verbally abusive, physically abusive, and very negative and destructive, and would really crush your confidence and so forth. So I lost my train of thought again. What was I talking about?
Oklahoma.
Yeah. So my oldest brother had gone to Oklahoma State, quite frankly, because it was cheap. Out of state tuition at that time was $18 a credit hour. And so my brother had the student loans. My father wouldn't give him a dime. And so same with me. And so I got on a Greyhound bus for 39 hours and went out there. And I was supposed to go to the University of Denver until I realized I have no football team. And I had intended to walk on as a football player, having had some success at that in high school. And but I realized, but I want to do sports. I want to get into sports, including play-by-play. Probably that's all I thought about. I never thought about TV or talk shows. There were no talk shows back then, and so I just changed from Denver and thought, well, I'll go where my oldest brother Mike, who's now 84, where he went. And he loved Oklahoma State. Said people are so friendly. Politically, it's nice. Politically, when you get there, you set your watch back to 1849 is how you set it back. But still, they're great, friendly, wonderful people, and you'll love it. So I did, and he was absolutely right, and I loved it. And it was It was on a bus, 39 hours to major in radio and television. And Phil Cutchin was the head football coach at that time, and I asked if I could walk on. And obviously not get a scholarship. I wasn't that good. And the radio TV department head, I met with him, and he said, "You want to be a broadcaster, huh? Well, listen, our play-by-play guy who does the football, basketball on the campus radio station, Steve O'Neill, wonderful guy, taught me so much. And Steve is a senior, so if you're any good, you work with Steve this year, and if you're any good, you can take that over. But you got to give up football. Obviously, you can't play if you're going to be broadcasting." I gave up football that day. Never even got to the next practice, the first practice, the next day in August, and started with the campus station. And that was the beginning of my career of 60 years. And again, as always, there's somebody there to give you a break, to help you all through your career. And I've had so much of that from so many people. And that's how I wound up at Oklahoma State, which was really, I thought, a great experience.
Well, there's another question here. He seems to have a vested interest in this. I'm not sure. 1982-83 San Diego Clippers. He grew up in Orange County and had friends who were friends with Richard Anderson, who was on that Clippers team. My friend Don here was able to attend practices at the sports arena back then and was close to the team. That team included the likes of Tom Chambers, Craig Hodges, Terry Cummings, Bill Walton, and of course Richard Anderson at 6'10",
right,
who loved to shoot from the outside. That team was certainly not very successful. However, many of those players went on to greater successes elsewhere. Your thoughts on that team?
That team was good, and there were other Clipper teams that were darn good. And when Swen Nader was the center, and World B. Free, the former Lloyd Free, who could shoot, my God, could World shoot. And I had a great relationship with him and Jelly Bean Bryant. Kobe Bryant's dad. I was very close with Joe because I
Hmm.
covered him when I was in Philadelphia, and he played for the 76ers after playing in college ball in Philadelphia and in the Big Five. And so they were really, when I was doing the Clippers, they had some bad teams, and they had some teams that were really pretty good. But then when they made the deal to get my buddy Bill Walton, I thought, now we're going. But they had to give up a lot of talent to get Bill. And Bill Walton told me his biggest regret in life and sports, which happened to be in sports, was that he let down the city of San Diego with his multiple injuries that had always plagued him. He had come home. Remember, we had those billboards put up with showing Bill's back, showing Walton's back, and and we were so excited. And Bill just could not physically play again until he finally got to the Celtics, coming off the bench and helped them win a championship. But Bill always told me that haunts me. I said, "Hey, Bill, it wasn't your fault, man. 37 surgeries. You just kind of outgrew your legs when you became a 7 foot kid, literally." And I love Bill dearly. I miss him every single day of my life. And another guy that I was so blessed to know, and they're talking about naming streets for Bill in San Diego and La Mesa, of course, where he went to Helix. And every one of us should be behind that 100% slam dunk, naming things for Bill Walton, who promoted this city like crazy, who loved this city like nobody I ever met.
Slam dunk. No pun intended or pun intended?
No, pun not intended. No, I'm not that smart. I'm not that quick.
That was good. That was good.
Thank
I
you.
like that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. He
So,
was something.
one of my last things I have to ask you here is, aside from the broadcasting, the sports, you had a career in radio. There's a Mark Larson, and you were also a sportscaster on Channel 8.
Of course, for
What,
25 years.
what, boy, you sure had a unique way of doing that. I love watching you.
I
So,
appreciate that. I do.
was there a favorite, or do you, I don't know, talk to me about either one of those or both.
Well, I had so much fun, just like with Jerry working on the play-by-play. And I know a lot. Some people didn't like that. Don't mess around with Jerry. And I'll tell you that I had a new executive come in. I'll make him nameless. Came in after Jerry and I had been on the air a long time, and he called me in. And he said, we're in a pennant race, and you're asking Jerry, what'd you do today? I don't give a damn. I don't care. I just to concentrate on the game. And I always got criticized like that. If I told a story, and it was I don't give a damn about your stories, and just give the score and shut up. There is that group of sports hardcore purists that don't want stories unless it's maybe by a Vince Scully, who's in a different group and category than all of us. May he rest in peace. And I understood that, but I don't care. I wanted to do it the way I was going to do it, and that's
Mhm.
why that love hate thing, as you mentioned, was absolutely legitimate. I'm not embarrassed about that or ashamed about that. I did say to John Moores one time when he was the owner of the Padres, John, does the statute of limitations ever run out on the stuff that I've done? Will I ever be forgiven? And he just smiled and laughed. But that's part of it. That's part of it. But like with Howard Cosell, like with Howard Stern, and I don't compare myself to big stars like that. As long as they're watching you, listening to you, know who you are, and that then you have some modicum of success in a very competitive industry. So with Channel 8, I mean, working with Mike Tuck, we were very close, and then we weren't, but we were very close. And he was as good a guy to work off and bounce off, and he made you better, just like Jerry taught me. Set up your partners, work with your partners. There's not me, I. Team. And nobody made me better than Michael Tuck. And after that, nobody made me better than Hal Clement, who was fantastic. And of course was a sports guy before that at Channel 10. So he was perfect when he became the news anchor of leading me into something and making me better. So all of that, I had like 4 minutes on Channel 8, and I just had a wonderful time every single time. And years before that, I had decided I want more pressure on myself. I don't want to talk to people, like looking up and down at a script. I don't want to stare at the teleprompter and do that. I just want to talk to them. So I've never used a teleprompter in my life in Philadelphia or Hartford. I just went out there and told the director, hey, I'm going to talk about, in this case, Padres, then I'll mention this, and then we'll have the hockey highlights, then we'll do this. And these directors, once again, because you had Steve Richards at Channel 8, and I had the great directors in Philadelphia and Hartford, they you could do that because they could handle it because they were so great. So once again, it's other people that are helping you do your stuff and making you look better or making you look good. And that's the way it was at Channel 8. And I just, and people would comment and say, I don't care about sports, but it looks like you're talking right to me because you're not reading it to me. And they never had that before. Never had that before. So it's not that I was so wonderful. It's just that I was doing it in a different way, but a way that was natural to me. So
It
that's
was
my
more of a
channel.
conversation.
Exactly. It was conversational. I'll never forget. I was doing a game, not a game. I did it at 11 o'clock one time, and ESPN's Al Bernstein, the boxing guy, was here doing whatever, and he called me and he said, I've never watched a sports guy that just talked like he was having a conversation with a friend, like you were talking to me. And I said, Al, I never thought about that, but I do hear that now, and I'm glad because I never liked being talked to, with good evening, here's the news, blah, 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 blah. And that's the way it was in early television because those were radio guys coming into television, reading the script. It wasn't up in their brain, and so forth. Then the teleprompter, they could look pretty much like they were looking at the camera and do it. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to just because that's what people do. They talk sports, they argue sports, and so I thought I want to make it that way and natural, and it worked out very, very well. I'm proud of myself about that. Only from the standpoint that Bob Myers, the late CEO of the KFMB stations, who I dearly loved, gave his eulogy, in fact, at his funeral service. And Bob called me in one day and he said, let me show you this. This is the research that I do. And I did not believe in you when the news director, Jim Holtzman, hired you. I didn't believe in you. And I never saw somebody sit out there and do that. And I was thinking I was going to fire you after 1 year.
Hmm.
And now Bob showed me the research and said, look at this. 60% of our entire audience say you're the reason they watch because even if they don't like sports, you're entertaining, funny, whatever. And I'll never forget Bob telling me that. I was very proud of that. And I was. I also said to Bob, Bob, you shouldn't be telling me this. My contract's coming up.
Good one.
and,
That's
and I'm
great.
and I'm going to want more money, Bob. And
Yeah.
bless his heart and his soul. And Bob said, I don't care. I'll give you whatever's fair. I don't want you going to channel 39. I don't want you to go to channel 10 or channel 6. And so that's how lucky I was to fall into this by no planning, because I'm not smart. I'm not a smart guy. I believe that. And my investing and so forth of making that money, then I don't have it anymore. I invested heavily in alimony futures on the New York market, and I don't have any money left. But I had such a great time with so many people helping me, and the San Diego audience forgave me for, I guess, some people forgave me for being overly opinionated and obnoxious and all that stuff. And back to that line, you either hate Ted Leitner or you are Ted Leitner, that kind of
Yep.
thing. Despite the negative and the plus, I just had a wonderful time. I feel so blessed to have had that. And it did. It happened by accident. A lot of people just as talented or more talented than me didn't be at the right market, the right city at the right time. And I was. And I can't thank God enough for all that he's given me. It's just been fantastic.
You've had a good ride. I don't know if you
Oh,
can see behind me. I have, let's see, I don't know how to do this. I have your face up on my wall. I don't know if you can see that. You remember your face mask from
oh, the
KFMB?
mask. That was from Marvin K. Brown Cadillac GMC, which I was endorsed for 25 years. And it was the Aztec football game at home, homecoming. And they gave out 35,000 of those when the
Oh
Aztecs
wow.
really drew. They really drew back then, big time. And 35,000. And it was just a shock right after halftime. I remember that I looked and the entire stadium had those masks on. And I thought, oh my God, the children! Think about the children. They'll scare the children.
35,000 Ted Leitners. Oh
Exactly right.
boy.
And you mentioned Dave Marcus, the Padre producer, to this day. He mentioned last night at dinner that when he was growing up, as it were, in LA, and he could get Channel 8 on the cable up there, and he got one of those masks. It was on his refrigerator when he was a young guy at college. When he came down here to go to San Diego State, he had that mask on his refrigerator for years and years.
That's great. That's great.
Too much fun, Joe. Too much fun.
No, you've had a good run. Let's see. So I'm going to wrap this up here, but Ted, is there anything that you have to say for your throngs or gaggle of fans out there?
Oh, and thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's the old, I thank you, my mother thanks you, my father thanks you, my brothers thank you, my children thank you. You gave me a career. You gave me a career, and just that little hair I mentioned between success and failure is so thin that if Bob Myers, the former CEO of Channel 8, who didn't get my act and didn't know what I was doing, neither did I. I was just doing me, and if he had thought, no, no, I don't like him, I've made a final decision, and you're gone. It changes everything in my career, my life, and I never become Ted Leitner in San Diego. It's that thin, and it wasn't anything because I was swell. It was just flat out luck and the grace of God that somebody decided. And you know how part of what that was when Bob was talking like that, it was the time the Clippers. Steve Lees, who was in charge of promotions with the Clippers, Steve's still in town, wanted me to have a pie throwing halftime where Clipper fans could throw a pie in my face at halftime. They picked the game. It was against the Knicks. Never forget, never forget. And so at that time, Bob Myers, the CEO, was with Jack Everett, who was the chief of the stations, that the chain of stations, including Channel 8 here. He was in from Champaign, Illinois, at the station there. And they all said, hey, we're going to go down to a Clipper game with you. I said, okay. And so they went with me. And this was when I was still on trial, as it were, double secret probation, like they say in Animal House. And we walked in the arena, and people saw me in like seconds and started to cheer and boo at the same time. And just a holocaust of noise. And then they watched, and the pie throwing situation, and the people cheering and just going crazy. And afterwards, Bob said to me, you know, you're everybody here knew you. I said, well, Bob, that's what, Jim Holtzman, the news director, that's what Jim and I are trying to get to, that they may say they hate me and they may tell you they're never watching again because I said A, B, and C. But like with Howard Cosell, they do watch. They do watch. And it was that night that Bob moved over to my side and kept me, and it was the Clipper pie throwing. I'm convinced that was big, and the honcho from Champagne said the same thing. More, keep doing what you're doing because it looks like they're tuning into Channel 8. And shortly after that, not because of me, but because of Michael Tuck and Allison Ross and Clark Anthony doing the weather and a great group of reporters and producers and writers, we became number one shortly after that. And I was proud of that, but I didn't do it. Wasn't me. It was not me. It was that group at Channel 8, and that Clipper pie throwing thing became a big deal. And you know how it made it an even bigger deal in New York? They roasted me. They killed me in the radio, TV columns, and the newspapers because the Clippers forgot to put a tarp down for the pie throwing.
Oh.
And when we get ready to start the game, which is, of course, 3 hours later by then, still, in the second half, back in New York City, Eastern time zone, there's pie all over the court, over that side of the court where they had the pie throwing. No, they didn't put anything down, no drop cloth, nothing. 40 minutes, 40 minutes of delay while they wipe up the pie. And I was the most hated guy in New York City among Knicks fans of all time,
That
even
may
worse
be
than.
the only sporting event, not with a rain delay, not with a snow delay,
No, no, no.
high delay.
Pied out. It was pied out, and there
Find
was
out.
meringue. There was whipped cream and meringue everywhere. It was just amazing. And they're wiping and wiping and wiping, and just didn't come right off. I mean, literally 40 minutes. I still have the
Wow.
newspaper article. I still have the newspaper article from the New York News and the New York Post on my phone somewhere for of the story of the delay, and just just crazy. So here it becomes a boondoggle, a great promotion. And the Clippers, I'm also proud, and it was important to my bosses that the Clippers were doing, 6, 7,000, and they sold the place out for my pie throwing thing. And I was happy to let my bosses think that I'm the one that sold it out, whether I was or not, probably not. But it really changed. You could hear the click, and suddenly Bob was talking about a new contract, and I was able to continue. And that's the luck that you either have or don't have. And I had that. I had that with owners changing with the Padres, and they would come in, and a Lucchino would say, you're different. You're an acquired taste, like anchovies, like you said. And they could have said, we don't want them. We don't want them. And I was able to get through all those different tests. But the bottom line is, it's the
Well,
audience, to answer your original question. It's the people
yeah.
now, right here, and everybody in San Diego, from the 2 million when I got here to the 3.3 million now. I know they didn't all love me. We already discussed that and accepted that. But they loved me enough or liked me enough to give me a fantastic career beyond my wildest. I should apologize if I ever dreamed of having this kind of success in this business. And because
Well, I
as my
have
father,
two.
yeah, yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Your father.
No, like I said, he was very negative, and he told me I had no discernible talent. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. You should be a teacher, like your brothers, and you should not be a broadcaster. And I ain't paying for it. I know. And he was a very negative guy. In fact, Jerry Lewis and I used to do that all the time. We would get together, and his father, it wasn't so much that he was as abusive as mine and as negative as mine, but his father never praised him, just like mine. Never, good job. Never a pat on the head, never an arm around the shoulders. And a lot of those people from that generation were like that. It's like, I forget the comedian whose name just slipped out of my mind, who always said, I think my father loved us, but but he had absolutely no regard for our self-esteem and our happiness. I think that encapsulates my father, and with that, so Jerry and I would talk about our fathers doing that sort of stuff, and I would mention those kind of things of, you have no discernible talent, and it's always negative. So Jerry Lewis told me when he made it and became, with Martin and Lewis, he brought his family out to Brentwood. I think it was Bel Air, but whatever, in LA, bought him a house, filled it with furniture. And then Jerry tells me for his birthday, he buys his father a brand new Cadillac, puts a big ribbon on it, has it delivered to his house. And later he calls and says, Dad, happy birthday. Thanks, Dad. How you like the car? And his dad says, what, you couldn't get me a convertible?
Oh shit.
That kind of attitude is what I grew up with. That negativity that you could, if you were 4 for 5 in a little league game, it was, what the hell happened in that fifth at bat? You look terrible, terrible. You popped up the first pitch. That kind of attitude, it wears at your soul, man. It crushes
Yeah.
kids. You don't have self esteem. You don't have self esteem, and that's what Jerry grew up with. That's what I grew up with, and we would do that all the time. Jerry told me he was invited to do after he broke up with Dean Martin, a command performance for the Queen of England at the Palladium in London. And he said, I fly my family out there on a charter plane, spend all this money so they'll see me in this magnificent venue and one of the highlights of my life as an entertainer. And he said, I had a great show, Ted. I had a great show. And I'm in my dressing room and I hear tap, tap, tap. And my dad sticks his head in. I say, Dad, come in. So I'm looking in my mirror and I see my dad in the mirror. And I say to him, Dad, it doesn't get any better than this. And my dad says, Nah. If you ever make it on Broadway, then it'll be big. It's always you're not good enough. You're
Tough
always
crowd.
not good enough. It was a tough crowd, and I don't know if that's my dad and Jerry Lewis's dad, rest in peace. I don't know how much of that was prevalent back then. I don't think back in the 50s and 60s that parents said "I love you" or put their arms around you or were affectionate. I don't know because I didn't have it, and it
Sure.
was just that kind of a thing. And so, but still, he put a roof over my head and took care of me when I was sick. So I hate to criticize him now that he's gone. That's kind of gutless, but it was very difficult. And you don't have self-esteem. You don't think you have any worth. You don't. You just don't. So if you can overcome that, and my brothers have both overcome that marvelously, and I'm proud of them, that you have to develop your self-esteem where you can, And I was able to do it in college, being away from him. And you find out that yeah, I can do this and I can do that. I'm not a moron, like he kept telling us we were morons and stupid and all that stuff. And so Jerry went through that, and look what he did in a magnificent career. And that's the deal. That's the deal.
Probably makes your drive even stronger.
It could be. It could motivate you. I'm sure many athletes have been motivated by that. That was my one of my favorites on Dick Williams. You know, he didn't care about your feelings when he managed the Padres. He'd throw you under the bus. He'd criticize you publicly. He'd tell the writers you sucked. And I don't know how much of that was Dick trying to motivate them, but I know it worked. I know it worked because he said Andy Hawkins was the only timid Texan he ever saw. And Andy wanted to go out there and just beat the cheese out of him right then. But Andy motivated that and had a great postseason in '84 when he went from the rotation, remember, to relieving. Andy Hawkins showed that guy, I can pitch, I can pitch. And he called him Tim Flannery. Dick called him in one time and said, "You are the worst ball player I have ever been around or managed in my life." That, I assume, he wasn't just cruel. My father wasn't cruel, but Fland was motivated, and by God, he became one heck of a second baseman, a terrific hitter. And he and Jerry Worcester handled that second base position really well, helped the Padres go to that first ever postseason in '84. And the funny part of that, which I've never shared with anybody, I don't think publicly, was after that, the team found out that he had said that Flan was the crappiest ball player he ever knew. So they started calling Flan Dookie. As in, when we went back to the old days in school, we used to raise our hands, number one or number two, when we wanted to go to the bathroom. Why the teacher had to know, we don't know, but that's the way it was for the baby boomers. You had to hold up your hand with a one or a two. So through the years, a two became, a dookie, as it was called. But
Wow.
Flan told me this only 2 years ago. 2 years ago, when we did a thing for the fans at Petco that I emceed, and he said, I didn't know, I never heard that phrase. I never heard that you went and took a dookie at the bathroom. And I thought when the guys were calling me Dookie, I thought it was the coolest nickname I ever heard. I had Dookie on my license plate. I had a little bit, I
Oh,
had a
no.
necklace that said Dookie, and I didn't know. And then I think Templeton or somebody like that told him, "Hey, Flan, don't you know what a Dookie is?" No. And then he told him, and Flan was crushed because he
Wow.
thought Dookie is so cool. I love to be called like Duke Snyder. Like I'm the Duke. I'm Dookie.
Yeah.
No, that's not what they meant. They meant because Dick
No.
Williams said you're the crappiest ball player he ever was around. And I laughed and laughed, and Flan laughed and laughed and laughed. All of these stories and all these great people like Tim Flannery, who I got to know and still call friend. This is all part of not just the blessing from the fans to give me the career, but these amazing men who have been around who taught me so much. Because you tell you what, you travel with these baseball players, Joe,
Yeah.
and you hear, hey man, I know I was 0 for 4. I'll be fine. I'll be out there tomorrow. I'll do something else to help my team win. And that mental strength they have. That's why I always laugh when they have these confrontations with the players union and the ownership. And we're going to break the union. And we're going to get them. And we're going to crush this union. And I think to myself, these poor owners, they don't have a gosh damn clue. They don't know the mental, let alone the physical prowess, but you don't need that in negotiations. You don't know how mentally strong they are. So they go out there and they make them offers, and they make them offers that'll screw the young guys coming up in the minors. They've done that and say, okay, so you won't have a salary cap, but it'll be a two-tier system. You get to keep everything you've got now, but the next group coming up from the minors will institute a salary cap for them. What do you care about them? And the players say, no, because they're men of integrity.
Wow.
They're men of
Yeah.
integrity, and they won't be throwing them under the bus like the guys before them did not throw them under the bus back in the '60s when Marvin Miller started the union. And so these people always think we're going to get them. You don't know what it's like to be a ball player and get even the great ones. Greg Maddox and all those guys get lit up, and it's like, hey, tough start, and they'll say, "What start? What are you talking about?" Or Hoffy will blow a save every 3 months,
Yes.
and you'll say, Hoffy, you had that when you blew that save last week, and Hoffy would say, what are you talking about, Ted? What save? I don't know what you're talking about, because it's always that was then, this is now. It's not what happened, it's what
Yeah.
next. I'm a
Let's go,
professional
man.
baseball. Yeah, I'm a professional baseball player. I'll be out there. They are so mentally tough, and I learned so much working with Bob Scanlon, who had been a pitcher and for the Phillies and the Cubs and so forth, and got cut several times. But Scan came back. Scan came back. He made that next team. He made that next team. I learned so much of his attitude and try to adapt his attitude. And their saying of, "Hey, I can't control what I can't worry about what I can't control." The ball's up in the air, it goes out in a little bandbox place in Denver. I'm not going to whine about it. I'm just going to go and take care of it and go and just I'll be better next time. They're just amazing, and I thank them, all those hundreds and hundreds of Padres since 1980, my first play-by-play year, that
Yeah.
taught me by their attitude, their integrity, their strength of mind, and the family people that they are. I got so many people to thank. Joe, you don't have a show quite this long to thank everybody I have to thank.
Well, you were certainly blessed to see the entirety of Tony Gwynn's career, were you not?
Oh, wow. All 20, all
Can't
20
go the
years.
whole
And
show without bringing up Tony's name.
I understand. I'm glad you did because I just been at his memorial, at his funeral, and when Alicia said to me, Tony loved you, and I was so happy. I was so happy. And before those, 20 years, I was doing Aztec basketball when Tony was playing in 78 and 79. And that's when he wasn't allowed to play Aztec baseball. When Tim Veazey was the coach, he wouldn't allow him to do that. And then later on, he was able to play both. And I got to know, befriend, watch Tony Gwynn teach us how a pro goes about things, how a man understands the media has a job to do. And that's what I got. And I say, who am I to be so lucky to be here? And I not just do those 20 years of Major League Baseball, not with the greatest teams all the time, but it doesn't matter. You're still in the majors. And within your game, there's a game of like four at bats of Tony Gwynn, one of the greatest of all time. And you're traveling with him and you're hearing that laughter in the clubhouse, the laughter on the charter plane of Tony's laugh and thinking, how can anybody on this plane be unhappy listening to Tony laugh? I
Sure.
just, it was incredible. We're making a stop because we had an old 737 then that couldn't go coast to coast, couldn't go east to west against the headwinds and using more fuel. And so we stop in Phoenix and they bring burgers on board. And I'm right across from Tony and Mark Davis. Mark Davis, the Cy Young winner, great reliever, and Tony's talking and talking, looking across the aisle and talking to guys. And Mark reaches over his seat, and while Tony's leaned over talking to somebody across the aisle from aisle seat to aisle seat, he takes the meat out of the bun, takes the patty out, and keeps it. And so Tony keeps biting at his bread, biting at the bun with no meat inside, and continuing to talk and laugh. And then suddenly he says, "What the?" And then he looks inside the bun, and the meat's gone, but he kept several bites going, and he starts to laugh. He starts to laugh, Joe, so hard, so hard. It was unbelievable. And everybody around him, like he was the Pied Piper, started to laugh, and they're telling each other what MD had done, what Mark Davis had done, and this. And I got not just the games, not just the at bats. I got to hear Tony laugh and laugh with Tony in almost every conversation we had. And every time he'd walk in, I'd come up to him, or after he retired, he'd come in the booth. It's Theodore. I still hear it. I still hear it. I say, T, Theodore. And now, because there is a God, I walk into the radio booth as an ambassador during my 5 years of that, and Junior is in there, and he'll say, Theodore. I'll say,
Oh,
T. I'll say, T. And it's still going, still going. And of course, he sounds just like
just like
Anthony, just like him. And it's just a blessing. It's just a continuous blessing.
sure.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you. Thank you, Tony Jr. And it's been some ride.
I have two pictures, something that we talked about to bring up. I found so I have your great pie incident
Haha, there's the pie
pulled up right
covered
now.
covered with pie. Very, very high caloric. Yes.
I thought some people might want to see that. But you also mentioned Allison Ross, and I have a picture of her pulled up right now. I talk to Allison every now and then. She's doing good.
I'm
I
glad.
don't know. You
I'm glad.
mentioned her name. She's a real sweetheart. We talk every now and then.
Hey, I'll
Probably.
tell you what, Joe. I'll tell you what. I'm going to interrupt you, Joe. But the greatest female news anchor performers I ever worked with were Alison Ross and Kathleen Bade, who had come late to Channel 8 and then moved over to another station for the remainder of her career. But Alison and Kathleen were just two of the most talented, just fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
That's good to hear. I like that. She's definitely one of my favorites. Ted, I'm going to wrap it up right now.
Okay,
I
man.
mean, it appears that we made it through any technical glitches that could have happened. We did it.
That's great because
And
normally there's a black cloud that follows me from a technical standpoint, and I had a lot. Even when I had they put together a retirement party for me on Zoom with Buddy Black and Bruce Bochy and a bunch of other people all on Zoom. And I was here in my house as I am now, and I got knocked off my own testimonial Zoom like 5 times. I wasn't there for most of the time, and they were just basically talking about me while I was gone, hopefully decently, not too critically. But I always have trouble in this neighborhood. This is the smoothest, cleanest Zoom of all time, brother. Thank you.
I like it. I like to hear that.
Yeah, man.
Well, I'm gonna cut you loose here. Please, let's grab dinner sometime. Come on out to Hilltop Deli. By
I'll
the
do
way,
that.
I do have to throw out a little bone here. Come on out to Hilltop Deli, Monday through Friday. It's 7 to 3, Monday through Friday, and come on out, have a sandwich, and you guys won't be disappointed. That is my title sponsor. Of course, I have to because it's my business.
Of course, of course. But you're a working family. That's what it's about, man. That's what most of us came from. Blue collar, you work, you put your time in, and nobody gives you anything. And like I said, that's what you learn in sports from the players and everybody else. Got to put the work in. Got to put the work in. Who was it with? Gosh, big guy. Went to Arizona from the Aztecs. Johnson, can't think of his first name. This is what happens when you get old and the brain shrinks and your memory's going down the circular fixture there. And he always said, "Work is undefeated in terms of practicing and practicing." And he became so great. And that's it. Work is undefeated. Amen.
I like that. I'm going to take that.
Yep.
Well, again, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and close out the show now. Ted, thank you. I really appreciate it. You didn't have to do this. You gave me an hour of your time, and I really, really, really appreciate that so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Believe me when I tell you, my pleasure.
All right, man. I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you here for tuning into the Producer Joe Show. I will announce soon who my next guest is, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon.